Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Talk PMA. Today, we do have a very special guest. This is our friend Glynis. Glynis, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. My name's Glynis Matula. I am a time mastery coach. So I help people up-level their lives through using their time better, creating intentional routines for themselves, and also intentional scheduling. So that's what I like to do. That's my jam.
That's amazing.
So what experience do you have with coaching? We've talked a lot about you and your husband have had kids that were in sports and coached some. So can you give us a little bit of that background?
Sure. I was actually an athlete back in the day. I was a gymnast. I also helped out our basketball team all the way through high school. I was a stat. So I rode with the team every single week, and I had to be out of class to do that kind of activity as well. And then when I had children, my husband would coach, and I would always be, I don't know how I got roped into it, but I did. I was the team mom, and I was always having to schedule fields. I was having to do the scheduling for the athletes, and both of my kids did some premier level sports. One in particular, he was in the premier level in soccer. So he played for the MLS Sounder Academy when he was a teen. And he also was into baseball at the same time, doing select baseball. It was hard to manage a couple of different things. And that particular kid went on to do D1 level soccer at the college level. So we have kind of some experience with coaching the kids and also launching them into those collegiate areas.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That what we talked about the other day was the son that went into the D1 school. And can you give us a little bit of that experience, like his routine and how he got kind of had a downward slide for a little bit just because of his schedule, right?
Correct. I just spoke to him last night too, and we spoke about that because he was across the country at a school in that was way out there on the East Coast, and we're obviously on the West Coast here. And he was able to play and go to school at the same time, but the way they created their schedule for the athletes there, it didn't really work for them. And they were doing kind of what people call double days or two-a-days, where you work out in the morning and you do like the evening practice as well. So the kids would get up but the dorm didn't have any food yet. So they would have to get up and go to practice on an empty stomach and then work out. And then their schedule was so tight that when they went to go back to their class, they couldn't even really shower. They had to go like straight to class and that sort of thing. So it was kind of it really wasn't a great scheduling. It was kind of a scheduling nightmare, the way they had set them up as athletes. And so he tried to work through that on his own with his coach and that sort of thing. But it was, it kind of ended up being something that it wasn't fun anymore for him at that point, because it seemed like such a grind to be stuck in that situation on a daily basis. And he didn't feel like he could really advocate very well for himself at that point in time. And I found out later that's why he wanted to kind of quit the school and leave. And now he's actually lives halfway around the world. He lives in another country, and he's doing really well. And he does still play different intramural sports on different teams with a lot of ex-college athletes. He does softball, and he also plays in soccer for those as well. So he didn't really lose his love of like the game, but it was kind of the situation that he was thrown into at that
Mhm.
time.
So with his routine and the two-a-days and just being so on demand all the time, Glynis, how did you see, like, did you talk to him constantly? Did you see like his mental um worthiness of himself? Did you see that deteriorate, or was it just the fact that he didn't like the school anymore?
He actually never really reached out to us. We didn't even realize that there was an issue. And that's one of the main things, is to be aware, I guess, as a college athlete, that you do have things in your power and you can reach out to people. You don't have to do it on your own.
Mhm.
You can reach out to your parents, you can reach out to the coach, you can reach out to an advisor and try and make things work.
Why do you think
And
that he didn't reach out? Do you think he just wanted to be an adult and do it on his own?
yeah, he's like that. He lives in another country. I mean, obviously, and has for several years as a young adult. He's 27 years old, and he's been living somewhere else for about 7 years now. So it's interesting to see how if you're very, very independent, how you are able to um not really accept help at that point. If you truly feel like you covered everything you can. And
Mhm.
I probably could have helped to intervene at that point as a parent, and I would have loved to if I had known what was going on. And it was kind of too late at that point when he said he wanted to leave. It was like July, and he was going back in August. He said, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, then.
Now what?
Um, yeah,
It's
now what? But what was interesting was he didn't lose like the toughness, but what he lost was feeling like he didn't have control over his own life. I feel like that was the piece. And when you're dealing with athletics, I think in college, I really think preparation is the key. And depending on the program, making sure that you advocate for yourself within that program, and having these setting up your routines for yourself, and making sure that the coach is on board with it. you know Having a cafeteria open, I mean, that would be pretty good. And if you don't, being able to have something on hand where you can eat prior to like getting out there. There's some steps that we could have taken to help him out you know during that time frame.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. I mean, as a previous college athlete, I totally understand that. Like, you can't go to practice on an empty stomach. Absolutely not. I mean, some of those practices are 2, 3 hours long. How am I supposed to work through that? How am I supposed to stay mentally tough, let alone physically tough, if I have literally nothing to run on? So that is a challenge, but I think it's so important, and we talk about it a lot, having that open communication with coaches. Like, I think coaches have to have open communication, and I think that's how you create a successful team, successful players, is by being able to say, "Coach, I'm fine with the two-a-days, but can you at least like help us out in getting food, because we don't even have time in the morning to. There's the cafeteria is not open," and just being able to like communicate that, because maybe the coach didn't even realize. Like, as a coach, there's so many things that you have to think about, and so maybe they just think, oh, they can handle buying some, granola bars or whatever to get them through the first practice. Um, but I think that's totally a two-way street, though. Like, the team needs to be able, and the athletes need to be able to communicate with the coach, as well as the coach needs to be able to have that open communication as well.
Well,
True.
maybe that's training on the parent side too, before all this starts. Maybe it's, the parents saying, okay, well, let's find out what your schedule is going to be. You're going to have two-a-days. So you need to, train our kids to understand that food is key. And you have to have energy to get through all these hard times and these hard practices. And so teaching our kids the value of food, number one, but just understanding, okay, you're going to have this schedule. So you're going to have to be mentally prepared. So with food, with just understanding what that means, between school and, your sports and everything else that comes in between. So having that discussion, and sometimes, kids don't want to accept our teaching, but just sometimes just mentioning, hey, let's just sit down for a second and go over the schedule.
Yeah, and when you don't know that there's a problem, you can't help.
No.
You literally cannot. And in this case, the coach did know what was going on, and nothing was done. So it was not a good fit for my son or our family for that program, because once you get in there and they're not solution based, and they don't want to solve for anything, it's best to probably look elsewhere to be able to further your career in that case.
Right.
And that was the thing here. I think preparation is the key for all of your routines for athletes, and also for just people in general. Just being prepared, having that hydration, that sleep, the nutrition, hygiene, being able to do brain dumps on a daily basis, and preparing, just in the case of, like, say, clothing, or uniforms, having those prepared for game day or even for your practices. All of those things go into your routines every day, and being able to realize that your routine can set you up for success and that positive mental attitude, or it can actually weigh you down and not help with that. It can make you run late if your routine isn't working, right? It can also make you feel nervous ahead of practice if you're not fully prepared. You can feel hungry if you're not getting enough nutrition in and planning that into your day. You could be dehydrated, not getting enough water in. So routines are really important, especially the morning times and the evening times, being able to get those set up so that you're setting yourself up for a great day, a great practice, a great game, and that sort of thing, I think is really key.
Yeah, and there's a coach that actually quoted this. I'll link it down below. I can't remember exactly who it is, but he talks about how you have to fall in love with the preparation. You can't be a successful athlete, or I mean honestly a person in general, without falling in love with that preparation. It might be tedious, it might be repetitive, but that's the only way that you are truly going to be prepared. And it's the same thing mentally. It's the same thing with, it's a game day. I have to make sure I eat a really good dinner the night before. And I have to make sure that when I wake up that morning, I eat a good breakfast, I have my uniform. And that's all preparation. It's all preparation in your mind, and honestly, just your things. But your mind, it's the same exact way. Before a game, I have to be able to sit down, prepare my mind for this next day, and fall in love with that. Fall in love with how it makes me feel when I am prepared.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing. I mean, think about how good it feels when you're completely prepared for something. Just that internal feeling of, gosh, I got this, rather than, oh my gosh, I'm scrambling because I got to get my uniform. I got to get all my stuff ready. I have to find food. I don't have time now. I don't have time to get it all done. So now I'm stressed.
It's funny, I was speaking with my son last night, and I was telling him about preparing for games and that sort of thing. And he actually said, this is really a great way to look at it, is that everybody's nervous before a game. And if they're not nervous, there's probably something wrong, right?
Right.
And he says, you channel that nervousness into excitement. And the way he would do that before a game is, instead of thinking like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't screw up in this game, I hope I get everything right, having that feeling equals a feeling of nervousness, right? So instead, thinking, I am prepared for this game and it's going to be an awesome match, and generating that feeling of excitement to where when you go out there, you have that positive mental attitude, and you can switch that around just by switching that thought from the negative Nelly thought that results in nervousness to a feeling of excitement. I mean, with a positive
Yeah.
thought. So I think that's great.
Well,
And
and it's the same thing as preparing yourself for, if I make a mistake, how am I going to react? If my coach yells at me, how am I going to react? Am I going to let it bring me down? Am I going to let it affect how I'm playing? Or am I going to say, okay, I made a mistake and I'm just going to work harder for it? Or the coach is yelling at me, I'm not going to listen to the tone of their voice. I'm going to listen to what they're actually saying to me. And so, like, you can prepare yourself for all the things that you already know you're going to experience.
I think athletes too sometimes take things personally when the coaches are, talking to them, and they might raise their voice. We all have seen that. My husband was a number one culprit of that over the years, being able to, kind of yell to the kids. But I really think that once you kind of think it's not personal, it's really not personal. They're just saying words to you, and they want the same thing you want. And they're doing that to coach you, to help you, not to bring you down. They're doing it to help move things forward and move things along, right? The intention behind it
Absolutely.
is not, malicious.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I think it all kind of interacts together. If you come in to your game or to your practice or wherever you're at, and you come in and you're, not out of your routine, you're scrambling, you're already coming in with a hard mindset of I'm not prepared. And then that goes into how you're going to react to the coach, because you're already feeling off. Your mind's not into it already. So you're already making yourself in a bad spot. So when your coach says something to you, you have the choice of how you're going to take it. But most of the time, if you're not prepared, you're going to take it as your coach is seeing through that, and you're going to take it as a negative thought. Where if you're prepared and you're already like, hey, I'm ready to go, I'm excited about this game. Yeah, my coach is yelling at me, but I hear that he's just trying to teach me. He's trying to get me to do something that's, better. So I think, that routine and how we portray everything all goes together.
And the way to do that too is being prepared means looking at your routine right now and really asking yourself what's working, what isn't working. Like maybe you're running late to practice every day. Well, why is that? Let's back it up. And so you work backwards, see what you want to fit in, and maybe you're trying to fit in too much, or maybe you're not fitting in the priorities for that period of time. So backing it, going backwards, and then figuring out your priorities with what it is for that day, and then just going from there and getting a set routine that really works for you. I mean, if you're running out of laundry every day, I mean, go out and buy some more underwear and socks. I mean, do you know what I'm saying? It's like, honestly, there's could be some simple fixes to some of these things. So, and playing with the order of things too, how you do things is also helpful. And like getting enough rest, that's really a key prep, I think, for athletes, because that's when they recover, is through rest at night and getting enough sleep. And especially with college age kids, they need more sleep than anybody, other than someone who's really aged. I think they really need to sleep. But getting some of those blue light things too, like with the phone, being able to do some simple tricks like that with your phone, having the blue shade on so you don't get that light from your phone or from your computer, that kind of thing, that can help you ease down at night. And I know a lot of people love their electronics and they try to use them right up to bedtime, but that's a good way of easing yourself into it. You can put it on a timer. I have mine on a timer. I'm older, so I use 10 p.m. as is when it goes down. The blue shade comes down.
Well, you're not that old because I'm a lot earlier than that. So you're good.
Yeah, but it is a good way to do it. And then getting that routine down at night sets you up for the next day, definitely. Like with the rest, especially, and getting your food in,
Yeah.
in the evening, and getting hydrated too throughout the day, remembering a water bottle, that kind of stuff. That's really going to be helpful.
Yeah.
for
And
athletes.
I think creating routines for coaches and parents is the same thing as well. It's so incredibly important. As a coach, I have to be able to have a routine and be prepared for a game, because if I just show up and I'm like, I don't really know who we're playing, I think this is probably what we're going to run, this is probably how it's going to go. I'm not prepared to put my players in the right position. So it's the same thing with the coaches. Like, I need to make sure that the day before, the week before, when I find out the schedule, I need to make sure that I'm paying attention to what's going to happen, make sure I have the right lineup that I need, and make sure everybody's in the right positions. If you're not prepared for it, then you're setting yourself and your team up for failure. And parents, it's the same thing. You can create a routine that can also enhance and help your athletes. Your athlete's schedule, so create a routine that's going to maybe boost them a little, maybe help them remember that this night before, they need to make sure all of their uniforms are out, their water bottles, their shoes, their whatever, everything's up and ready. So that they don't have to worry about that, or that they can still worry about it, but they have a backbone, they have a support.
And that's where, we used to get with you guys before games and say, okay, is your uniform clean? If you had a game tonight and then you have a game tomorrow, let's go get it in the washer and let's make sure that, you got your shoes out, your socks out. And so the parents, especially for the middle school, high school age kids, setting and teaching them that routine early will help them when they get into college, when they go, when they get into life, and, understanding that routines help so much. And so I think, parents are where we have to start, and then it just becomes a circle.
I remember when my kids were younger, in that age group, they would have a kid would come home with them after school, and we had these baskets where they'd put their backpacks, so that we could get, if they had any papers, they had to put them in a certain area. So I'd sign them and get them off. In their rooms, they would have a certain place, like a certain drawer or basket, that they would have their uniform. For during the week, you'd have a practice uniform, then you'd have your official uniform, right? And I remember this one mom said, hey, Andrew said he come over to my laundry room. And I said, okay, like that. And I was picking up my son, and she goes, he told me I had to get a basket here for his backpack, because he liked how prepared everybody was at your house.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh my goodness, isn't that something that got passed on to other people? And when kids come over, they see, the framework that you have for it's for studying, it's for, getting good grades while you're, being an athlete at the same time. It's hard to do both. I mean, it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of planning, and having these routines set up to where it can launch you into not having to worry about things on that day.
Yeah, you're setting your kids up for success, instead of, just a chaotic bring it in and I don't know where my papers are, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing tomorrow, and the parents adding on top of that frustration because they don't know what you're supposed to be doing either. And so you've created you set your kids up for success because you created that routine for them.
Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely loved how we had it always set up. I mean, tournament weekends, I knew when I woke up, Dad was going to have breakfast ready for me. We were going to talk about the game. We were going to get a little bit pumped. We were going to make sure I eat a good breakfast, but not heavy, check all of our stuff, triple check everything. And like, it was a whole preparation of the morning, the night before, making sure you go to bed early. And I loved how it was so easily like implemented. Like it was just like natural for us. I mean, we were very close all the time anyways, and we always did so many things together regardless. But like it was so nice. I knew it's game day. I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna have a good breakfast. Dad's gonna have snacks, and we're gonna get in the car, we're gonna drive, we're gonna talk about it, we're having a good time, we're gonna get pumped. Like it was the same thing every single weekend or every single game day too. And it was so important to me because I knew those days that I woke up and breakfast wasn't ready, or maybe we were running behind, like those days made me feel anxious and made me feel unprepared. Like, oh, am I forgetting stuff? Am I forgetting stuff? But when we took that time and had that same routine, I always felt like I was prepared and ready for those games.
You know what's interesting? My husband was a coach for like Little League. He did, coached them all the way through like All Stars and that sort of thing. And he had these routines for the kids before they'd go out on the field. He would take, back in the day, a boom box, right? Um, and he would play like something really fun, like maybe Crazy Train or some sort of a fire up song. And he would have all the kids come in and they would play that, and it would kind of almost psych out the other team too. But they would all put their hands in and say, "Go team," that kind of thing. And a couple of weeks ago, we were at a memorial service, and there a friend of ours had passed away, and a lot of the kids that he had coached then came up to him and were telling him, you really made like these routines kind of fun before we went out and played a game. It was like we expected something, that would be kind of fun to get us all, fired up and started. And we had like 12 kids come up and say these things. It was really amazing. And these kids are like all 30 years old now.
That's awesome.
And they can still remember back in the day, how, we tried to set them up to push forward like that. It's really kind of a neat thing. If
It
you
is.
get people gunned up like your dad was doing, Allie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think routines last forever. Like I know that when we're going on a trip, this is how I think my routine when we're setting like getting ready for a trip or something is exactly the same as how it was when I was at home. I'm gonna make a good breakfast. I'm gonna make sure we're gonna triple check all of our packing, everything's by the door. We're going through our lists. I mean, it's the routines that stick with you, and they stick with you forever, whether you created the routine or it's something you grew up with. And I think that's super, super important to be able to keep that routine. And yeah, you're going to have to adjust. Yeah, I've had to adjust my own routines because I'm living a very different life than when I was a kid. So of course I'm gonna have to adjust, but I still have like my base of my routine that's usually the same for most everything I do.
I think setting these things up really, and people will, oh, I don't want to have a routine. Say, for instance, somebody might say that to you. But even if you say you don't have a routine, you really do. You can't just say you don't have one, because whatever you're doing, it's a routine. And
If it's chaos or not.
You get to be in charge of it. And so you can tweak it to help yourself, and you can also tweak it to not help yourself. So you get to be the driver of that and in control.
Yeah, I think it's the same as habits too. Sorry, Mom, what?
No, I just was saying that's a good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as habits. You might be like, oh, I want to create these new habits, but you have all these old bad habits that are making these new ones you're wanting to create impossible. So you have to be able to adjust, and you have to understand I have habits already, and I have created these bad habits because I've just kept doing them over and over and over again, whether I was conscious of it or not. But now I'm trying to create these new ones. So how am I going to use these new ones and have them overpower my old habits?
It all starts with just doing it on a daily basis, whatever you have set up, and making sure that you just rinse and repeat.
Absolutely.
Right?
All the time. Yeah. And that's how habits get created. We just have to, but it's hard to, they say, oh, it takes 21 days to create a habit. Well, it's an everyday thing. You have to mentally be ready for it every day. And so if make your routine in the night, okay, I'm going to think about what I need to accomplish tomorrow to create that habit. What am I creating tomorrow? What am I going to do tomorrow? And get up in the morning and be like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. But it's a constant mindset of, I want to do this. It's so easy to get out of that. So easy to say, oh, I don't feel good today, or, oh, I don't want to. But if we can stop for a second in the morning and say, maybe I don't feel good, but I'm going to still complete it as best as I can because I want to continue to do this. I want to continue to get better.
I think it's pretty amazing when you like the night before. So I'm like, okay, I have to get this, and this done. Or I want to be up by this time. Whether I set an alarm or not, I've already mentally prepared myself. I have to get these things done. I want to be up at this time. I'm setting my internal clock. And for me, I know how much that works, whether the morning I wake up and I don't want to get up or not. I know, like, I wake up because I said the night before, I'm going to get up at 8:00. Whether my alarm went off or not, sometimes I wake up at 7:45 because that internal clock is ready because I've already prepared myself. So if you start and you just prepare yourself that night before, especially mentally, then I think that anybody can be super successful, and it can be an easier transition to create those new routines and those new habits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, nobody likes to, wake up in the morning. Come on. The bed feels good. It's
Nice
easy
and
to tuck
warm.
yourself out. It's all cozy. I mean, nobody wants to wake up in the morning, but you do it because you want to be a winner. You want to be that way. You don't want to just lay in bed all day. So the difference between being successful and not is just getting up. Because no one wants to.
Make the choice to get it done. Plain and simple. Go out and do it. Make the
Get
choice
her
to get it
done.
done. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Does anybody have any final thoughts that they want to share?
I do. When I was speaking with my son last night, he said, prepare, but once you get to the practice or to the game, don't overthink it. Have fun. Just have fun. Remember, it's just a game. That's what he told me.
Absolutely. Two things I was always raised with was have fun and work hard. If you're not having fun, then why are you here? That's the point of it. It is a game. Overall, it is a game. So just understand that the fun is all that matters, truly.
Agreed.
Well, Glynis, thank you so much for joining us. We're really happy to have you here. Had some really great experiences and opinions on your routines and how our athletes and coaches and parents can all, gain those solid routines and how they can support one another. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And everyone, please don't forget to like and subscribe below. Check out our Instagram, our Facebook, our website to get our workbook. Please go on there and get one. They're waiting for you. www.letstalkpma.com. Go check it out. We'll see you all next week.